So, welcome to the Arthritis at Work Symposium. I'm Stephanie Hudgins, the Director of Field Engagement for the Arthritis Foundation, and I have a special focus on the Arthritis at Work initiative. We are so pleased to have you with us today as we explore how arthritis impacts the workplace and how we can create more supportive, inclusive environments for people living with arthritis. Just a quick note before we start, all participant lines are muted and we encourage you to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen to submit any questions, and we'll have time to answer those after the presentations. First, it's my pleasure to introduce Asia Lee, the Director of Patient Education at the Arthritis Foundation and a passionate advocate for public health education and empowerment. Asia leads the development of educational tools and programs that meet the diverse needs of people living with arthritis, with a particular emphasis on equity and inclusion. With a background in education and a master's in organizational leadership, she is committed to ensuring that all communities, regardless of socioeconomic status, have access to the information and support they need to live healthier lives. And today, she's going to give us an overview of arthritis and share insights into its impact. Of course, I'll be sharing more about the Arthritis at Work program. And I'm also excited to introduce Andy Rowe, a dynamic and results-driven healthcare professional with over 30 years of experience in designing and implementing wellness and work-life programs across a range of sectors, from higher education and hospital systems to municipalities and nonprofits. Known for her strategic approach and deep expertise in benchmarking and innovation, Andy has a remarkable ability to bring people together, from leadership to frontline staff, to drive meaningful change. She currently lives in Chesapeake Bay in Maryland and models what it means to achieve true work-life integration. We're grateful to have her here today to share her expert perspective on worksite wellness and her experience with the Arthritis at Work program. So, Asia, I will turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. As Stephanie said, I'm Asia. Bear with me, I'm a little under the weather. We had our wonderful J Family Summit out in Salt Lake City, and I caught some type of cold, but I promise to still make this interactive and exciting. Let's go ahead and get started. So, arthritis is not just an old people's disease, right? So, sometimes we hear the word and we instantly think, oh my goodness, this has something to do with my grandparents, or this is always about seniors. But there's actually quite a few people on this panel right now that have arthritis, and I am not my grandma's age. So let's get a little bit into what arthritis actually is. So arthritis is not just an old people's disease, right? So sometimes we hear the word and we instantly think, oh my goodness, this has something to do with my grandparents, or this is always about seniors. But there's actually quite a few people on this panel right now that have arthritis, and I am not my grandma's age. So let's get a little bit into what arthritis actually is. So arthritis is two different words, arth and ritis. Arth is for the joint and itis is inflammation. So inflammation of the joints, if you want to simplify it. So it really becomes a space where arthritis is an umbrella term. There are so many different kind of types of arthritis that come from that. There's 100 different types. We have gout, we have psoriatic arthritis, and we'll talk a little bit more about those. But with injury to the body, that's where the pain comes from. So if you look at the screen right there, you have the bone. You start to lose kind of like some of that fluid in there. You start to get the inflammation along the sides where you have the membranes, and your bone starts to rub against each other. That's when you start having that inflammation and swelling. So think of arthritis as inflammation, swelling of your joints. It's pretty simple, but when you have a different kind of like diagnosis of what exactly you have, what type of arthritis, it starts to get a little more specific. So we'll kind of go over to some facts and figures now. Alrighty, why would you be on this call talking about arthritis in the first place? It's because arthritis is the #1 cause of disability in the US. So over 60 million Americans have it right now, and that number continues to increase. Over 71% of patients experience higher levels of fatigue than the general population, and 75% of those patients say that it's a challenge to do work activity, home activity, leisurely activities. Imagine when say you work at a warehouse. Amazon is super popular. Think about how you're on your feet, how you're having to bend down to pick up those boxes, how you're having to lift. People like me who work at a desk all day, I'm slumped over, my hands are crunched down, I'm not really moving around during the day. It gets fatigued from there, like I'm tired. And say you start to have the swelling as you're sitting there. We're just not as mobile as we once were as a generation, and that's starting to show in the workplace and the amount of time people are taking off to take care of their care when they have arthritis. Next slide. So let's get into the impact of it, because remember we said arthritis isn't just, oh, my grandma's joints are hurting today. It's a really big deal in people's lives, and it really affects their personal lives, their work lives, and just their overall self-efficacy. So arthritis and disability, leading cause of work disability among the US adults. And then arthritis and gender. So doctor diagnosed arthritis is more common in women than it is in men, about 24%. The cost of arthritis is expensive for both employers and employees. Two-thirds of adults in the US are of working age 18 to 64. They're paying to have some type of physical therapy. They're having some kind of doctor's bills. They are having to get some type of care. It's a very expensive disease to have. And then the problem with arthritis is that it comes attached with a lot of comorbidities. So, very common around people with other chronic conditions. So, if you have kidney disease or kidney failure, you may have gout. If you have heart disease, you very well may have arthritis, diabetes, obesity. Obesity and just overall weight size plays a big part into the inflammation and the wearing of those joints. So, comorbidities, in case you didn't know, that just are the associated diseases that come with one particular one. So the two diseases that are paired together. And some common symptoms. We talk about, oh my gosh, my joints hurt, but we don't always think about some of the other intricacies there. So stiffness. So think about I'm gonna set the scene for you. It's November. I live in Atlanta. November it starts to get a little frigid. It's about maybe 40 degrees outside. It's an overcast. The sun won't be shining for weeks. You wake up, not only are your joints in pain, they feel stiff. You're having some issues like moving your hands around. You can't really get your legs to kind of bend. That's the stiffness. That also is a decreased range of motion when you can't move your joints the way that you typically once could and to the level that you once could. The fatigue. It is so tiring to be an arthritis patient. Your body is just working overtime to do the regular day to day activities that you kind of tire yourself out. Redness and skin rash, that comes very particular to like the joints that are connecting right there in your hands. At any given time in your hands and your feet and your elbows, anywhere that there's a joint, you can see redness and swelling from where, and actually throbbing from where you are having that inflammation. And a low grade fever, because again, your body is just working so hard to try to just do the day to day activities. So, those are some common symptoms that come with pretty much all forms of arthritis. So, when do you see a doctor? So, we've made arthritis seem so common in our community. Oh my gosh, everyone's going to get it. It's wear and tear. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's not necessarily true. So, what we want you to do is recognize the potential signs and symptoms. So, pain, swelling, and stiffness in one or more joints. It's not normal to just because you're getting older and your body is getting older to just be in pain and to be stiff. That's not a normal thing at all. So pay attention to that. Joints that are red and warm to the touch. So I have an autoimmune disease that is related to arthritis. And sometimes my joint right here, you can see it in connection to the rest of these fingers maybe. This particular joint is a little more swollen than the rest. And I can know if I may be having inflammation flare because this turns red and it's swollen and it's hard to move that reduced range of motion. That leads me into joint tenderness and stiffness. It will hurt sometimes for me to zip up my jacket. That was one of the first signs I said, hey, I should probably see a doctor. So I encourage you to do that too. And joint symptoms that cause you concern. A little bit of cracking here and there in your knuckles, okay, we understand. But it's not normal for that to be a reoccurring issue or for you to have sharp pains in your bones or anything like that. We really want you to pay attention to those and talk to your doctor about it, because early and proper diagnosis is essential to have the best outcome. The sooner that we can know what's going on, the sooner you can get with the right care team, get on the right course of medications or the right lifestyle changes so that you can maybe circumvent some of that like issue later on. Next slide. Alrighty, so I've told you about the symptoms, how it's affecting people and employers in the workplace. Let's talk about some of those types of arthritis because there's 100 of them. These right here are pretty much like some very common ones that affect the Americans the most. So osteoarthritis, that is thought of the wear and tear, the aging. Oh my goodness, I am 62. I've had 62 years to be on my joints. It's wear and tear. That's not quite what it is, but if you want to associate the thought of it, OA is that. Gout, inflammatory form of arthritis that comes and goes. Gout sometimes is shown in your fingers, more often in your feet. We've had patients tell us it feels like a flare, feels like getting hit by a car, like it's a strong, intense pain. And this is a chronic disease. It doesn't necessarily go away. There's treatment for it. So you have to stay on a treatment regimen to make sure that you are keeping that at bay. Rheumatoid arthritis, that's an inflammatory form of arthritis, so that's genetic. Autoimmune condition that affects not only your joints, but your organs, including your eyes. So a lot of times those patients have like their eyes turn red or they have issues creating like fluid, like the blinking and the tears. There's the exhaustion. A lot of times there's bruising. There's so many things that come with rheumatoid arthritis. And a lot of times it's associated with like a lupus or some of the other ones on the side that we're going to get to, like axial spondyloarthritis. That's a really big word, and it took me a while to know how to say it. So please do not be discouraged if you get a diagnosis and you cannot pronounce it. I've been here almost 3 years, and I just had to sound that out myself. But it is several inflammatory arthritis diseases that affect the spine in particular. So if you're having some spine pain, you're having like some issues like towards your tailbone, that's something to take note of and talk to your practitioner about. And then we have psoriatic arthritis. So that has a skin issue attached to it. So inflammatory autoimmune. Autoimmune means genetic. It's not anything that you necessarily did for this to happen. It's just something you're kind of born with or it's in your family history. But that is attached to psoriasis. So, the rash that comes along with that. It looks different on different bodies. You may think it sometimes starts as like a small little patch, and over time, as you have flares, and flares are the moments of high inflammation, the rash can extend. So that's something else to watch when you talk to your practitioner. And sometimes we don't know. Kids can have arthritis too. Juvenile arthritis affects nearly 300,000 kids and teens in the US, and they unfortunately face all of the same kind of symptoms that adults face, just in little bitty human bodies. So there are specific pediatric rheumatic doctors that focus on them in their own kind of way. Okay, so people with arthritis can benefit from well-rounded care plans. So we talked about it being 100 different forms. Because there's so many forms, there's no one size fit all kind of approach to treating arthritis. If you have an inflammatory form like gout, like psoriatic, like RA, versus an OA, which is kind of the degeneration of those bones, the treatment plan is different. So we have prescribed treatments. Inflammatory arthritis forms may have biologics that they use, which are injections or they are different medications that kind of calm down the inflammatory response. Weight control. Weight control is really big with arthritis because if we can kind of release some of that tension on the joints, you can kind of move around a little better and the body is able to kind of move and have more lubrication. Physical activity. If you take nothing else from me, physical activity is the number one treatment that you can kind of help yourself to relieve pain. Get moving, get kind of outside. There's things you can do indoors as well. Over-the-counter medications, so your NSAIDs, your aspirins, your leaves. There are rubbing creams sometimes that we have. Activity pacing, making sure that you're not overworking yourself. It takes a lot for me to actually exercise. I'm working on it, but I am very lazy. But sometimes when I'm not feeling well or I'm having a flare, I just don't do anything at all. But what the key is to maybe not do a full hour, but break it down. Maybe do 10 minutes of exercise 3 times a day. So pace yourself so that you don't, overextend. Arthritis friendly diet. Try to eat foods that are anti inflammatory so that you're not upsetting your body and causing yourself some inflammation that you don't need to. So, omega fatty 3s, so you have your nice salmons. We encourage nuts, leafy green vegetables. The key here is to look at your plate and it should have a variety of colors, a variety of foods on there, and maybe just a small little treat on there in terms of getting your snacking. We don't want to say take away everything because life is to be lived, but everything in moderation. Therapy. Physical therapy and occupational therapy can very much be your best friend. They can teach you how to do different things around the house in a more effective way than you're used to doing it now that you have arthritis. Educational resources. Here at the Arthritis Foundation, we have a plethora of resources. This call that you're on right now is a resource. We have webinars, we have in person groups, connect groups. Anything you need to be on your journey, we can take care of you, especially support groups. Arthritis is not something that you should have to deal with alone. To feel better and to be better, you need to kind of do that within community. People that understand you and know kind of your background and can say, hey, this works for me, this didn't work for me. Let's kind of collaborate. So we have connect groups that service as support groups and better programs for better living. Everybody kind of just loses their footing sometimes. We eat bad things, we aren't active, we let the things happening in the world kind of affect our mental health. But we kind of got to make sure that we're locking into being our best self. So finding programs to live better. And we have all kind of resources here for you. I think on one of the later slides, my information is available. I get to do things like this all of the time. So if you need resources or need ways to better connect, learn more about your diagnosis, let me know and I can connect you to where you need to be.
Thank you, Asia, so much for being with us and that insightful overview and really highlighting how a well rounded care plan can make a difference for people living with arthritis. And now that we've really looked at that impact and what arthritis is, we're going to shift our focus to the workplace because arthritis doesn't clock out when people show up for work, and that's where Arthritis at Work comes in. We're excited to share how employers like you can play a meaningful role in supporting employees with arthritis and helping them thrive both personally and professionally. Before I get into arthritis at work, I'm going to take a minute to share my personal journey with arthritis. I was diagnosed at just 2 years old. That's me on the screen there. It developed after a persistent ankle inflammation that actually happened when I started walking. It was so painful that I stopped walking altogether. And throughout my childhood, I struggled to find the right treatments and medications. It was a constant cycle of trial and error. My first job was babysitting, and even then, I found it hard to keep up with the kids I was caring for. In college, the cartilage in my right hip completely deteriorated, and I had a very noticeable limp. I was working in restaurants at the time, going to a school in a metro area where a lot of walking was required, and just getting through a single shift left me in pain for days. Eventually, at just 24 years old, I had my first hip replacement. I share this story not because it's unique, but because it's not. I represent the invisible employee in your workplace, the one quietly navigating chronic pain while still showing up, doing their best, and pushing through. And that's exactly why the work we're doing today matters, because one small change can make a big difference. And you've heard my personal connection to the work, but so it probably doesn't surprise you to hear that arthritis doesn't get the attention that it deserves in the workplace. But we wanted to see just how true that was. In late 2020, we conducted interviews with 15 companies across different industries that we worked with. These conversations focused on what employers currently offer to support their employees with arthritis and where the Arthritis Foundation might be able to help. And the findings were eye opening. None of the companies had programming specifically targeting arthritis in the workplace. Most employers were not even aware that arthritis is one of the top causes of disability and a major driver of healthcare costs. And many of the facts that we shared were genuinely surprising to corporate decision makers. which just highlights how under-recognized this issue is. What it showed the Arthritis Foundation is that there's a real gap, but also a real opportunity. Employers want to do the right thing. They care about their employees' health and well being. They just don't always have the information or the tools. And that's where Arthritis at Work comes in. We followed up on our conversations with employers by asking people with arthritis what they need in the workplace, and the contrast was striking. On the left, you can see what companies commonly told us. We don't hear about arthritis from our employees. We don't have any programming specific to arthritis. And one that really stood out to us was staff with arthritis just tend to soldier on. The last one says a lot to me. People are showing up, they're pushing through pain, they're not asking for support, often because they don't think it's available or because they worry that it won't be taken seriously. I know this is the first job in my life that I've ever shared my arthritis diagnosis or even mentioned that I was in any kind of pain in the workplace. But on the right, patients share that they actually do need to feel that support at work. Things like resources to reduce stress, stretch and walk breaks, and ergonomic equipment. Of course, access to clear, easy to find information, flexible schedules, peer support groups, but most importantly, a culture of compassion and openness. And this disconnect is exactly why Arthritis at Work exists. There's a huge opportunity here to bridge the gap between what employees need and what employers are currently offering. So we looked at the gap between what employees need and what companies currently provide, but here's where we turn that insight into action. Arthritis at Work is our solution. The Arthritis Foundation developed this free program to equip employers with turnkey tools and resources in a collaborative, partnership based approach, specifically designed to support the 1 in 4 employees living and working with arthritis. Arthritis at Work is a powerful complement to any existing corporate wellness program. Its goal is to reduce absenteeism and missed workdays, increase employee productivity and engagement, and lower healthcare costs and other related costs. But most importantly, to foster a workplace culture that is inclusive, supportive, and understanding to those who manage arthritis. It's an easy way to make a meaningful impact without requiring a major lift. This is why it matters. Why should employers care? Because it can lead to fewer missed workdays. When employees have the tools and the support to manage their arthritis, they experience less pain, improved physical function, better quality of life. That means fewer absences and more stability on your teams. Second, it contributes to increased productivity. Beyond the physical symptoms, arthritis takes a huge toll emotionally and socially. By creating a more supportive workplace, employees feel less isolated and more valued, leading to improved focus, morale, and engagement. And third, it can result in lower healthcare costs. Healthier, happier employers need less reactive care. Through preventative strategies and improved outcomes, Arthritis at Work can help reduce the long term burden on both your benefits plan and your workforce. So, what is Arthritis at Work? It is a comprehensive program designed to support not just your employees, but also your managers or supervisors and your broader business goals. The program is built around 3 core areas of support. First and foremost, employees. We're providing resources, education, and connection to help them manage their arthritis and thrive at work. Second, managers and supervisors, equipping them with tools to better understand arthritis and confidently support team members. And third, your business as a whole. While the program is free, we know it takes time and intention to roll this out effectively. And that's why we offer dedicated implementation support to help you engage internal stakeholders and make the most of this opportunity. So I'm going to switch over to the stage demo page here. And just to give you a heads up, we typically use Teams. So can we see the stage demo? Can I get a nod or a thumbs up? Good. I'm so glad. Okay. So we've covered what Arthritis at Work includes, but I'd love to show you what it actually looks like in practice. This is the demo version of the customized landing page that you would receive for your participation in Arthritis at Work. It's designed to be clean, easy to navigate, and full of relevant tools and resources that your employees can actually use. At the top, you'll notice space for your organization's logo. In addition to the logo, you'll also receive a custom shortened URL, so it's easy to remember and easy to promote. And the reason that we co-brand this and customize it to your organization is we really want this to feel like a partnership. Your organization is partnered with the Arthritis Foundation to provide the support and resources to your employees living with arthritis. As we scroll down, you'll see the employee support sections. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you guys can see this a little better. As you can see, we have four main categories. They are healthy eating, physical activity, pain management, and well-being. The resources within each one of these categories do change every 6 to 8 weeks, and they come in so many different types of media. As Asia mentioned, we have a wealth of educational content, and it's going to come in podcast form, webinar form, downloadable printables, just written articles if that's your thing. We really want to meet employees where they're at, make sure that they're getting the information that they need to make a meaningful difference in their lives. Next, you'll see that manager and supervisor section. And this is really, excuse me, we know that managers shape the day-to-day experience of employees, and that includes how supported someone feels when managing a chronic condition like arthritis. It includes practical tools like what to say or maybe what not to say if someone discloses that they have arthritis or is asking for support or resources, how to make reasonable accommodations, and overall, how to make a more welcoming workplace for those living and working with arthritis. At the bottom here, you'll see what we call our calls to action section. And this is really ways that employees can connect with the Arthritis Foundation. Living with arthritis can be very isolating, and we know that connection and community play a huge role in emotional and physical well being. This makes it easy for employees to plug into supportive resources like the Arthritis Foundation Helpline. It's always featured on the Arthritis at Work platform, and it really can be the best way to get started with the Arthritis Foundation and find the resources that you need. Another great opportunity, I think Asia already mentioned this, but I will say it again, our connect groups are our support groups, and they really can be so helpful. They are categorized on arthritis type, geography, where you are at in the country, and or the life stage that you're in. So we have one for pretty much everyone that you can get involved in those. And of course, there are plenty of opportunities to get involved, from local special events like Walk to Cure Arthritis and Jingle Bell Run, and of course, virtual and national level events as well. This section is actually updated most frequently to reflect all of our new offerings, programs, and opportunities to engage. So employees always have access to the latest in what the Arthritis Foundation is doing. So, Arthritis at Work is more than just information. It's a fully supported resource designed to help your employees feel better, your managers lead better, and your organization create a more inclusive, productive workplace. And I'm sure by this point you're wondering, what do I have to do to get started? And getting started is quick and easy. The first step is completing the commitment form. It's not a contract, but it helps us know who to connect with on your team to move things forward. So once we have that form and the logo you would like to see on your Arthritis at Work platform, we'll get started. It takes about 3 to 5 business days, but you'll receive a welcome email from us with everything you need. And from there, implementation can be as simple as sending an internal email to let employees know the resources available, or we can work together with your local staff partner to develop a more robust launch plan tailored to your organizational goals. And I want to leave you with a clear call to action. My time is not up yet, but you will receive a follow-up email today that has the recording of this session and the commitment form. And completing that commitment form truly is the first step to bringing a custom co-branded Arthritis at Work interface to your organization and showing your employees that their well-being really does matter. So again, once we receive that completed form and logo, you'll receive the welcome email, which includes your custom URL, your custom QR code, and a link to our comprehensive communications toolkit for Arthritis at Work. It's going to have that Arthritis at Work logo in there. It'll have talking points for internal emails, benefits guides, and other communications, a ready-to-use launch email, customizable posters and flyers. The list goes on. And we're always adding new things to that communications toolkit as well. It's really designed to help you roll the program out seamlessly and with minimal lift on your end. And we'll also provide ongoing support through our bi-monthly email series. So all listed stakeholders on the forum will receive regular updates with fresh materials, tips, and ideas to help you continue promoting arthritis at work and engaging your team. And we want you to know you're in great company by choosing to partner with the Arthritis Foundation and offer arthritis at work to your employees. What you're seeing here is just a small sample of the more than 170 employers currently using the program. It's a growing community of organizations committed to building more supportive, inclusive workplaces, and we're excited to welcome more partners to that mission. Now, I'd like to turn it over to Andy. Thank you again, Andy, for being with us today.
Thank you and welcome everybody. Thank you, Stephanie and Asia, for your presentations. And hopefully this will give you an opportunity to look at wellness in the workplace. Just a personal story for me as well. So I've been working in the wellness field for many years and recently was diagnosed with osteoarthritis. And I'm a month out from having my left hip replaced. And so all of the tools and the programs that are available through Arthritis at Work have been very instrumental in me prepping for my surgery as well as my recovery. And for those who are in the work site wellness workspace, love to talk to you about some of the best practices. So if we move to the next slide, wanted to just make sure that you know that all of the programming that we're talking about is really focused on employee wellness as well as connecting managers with their employees. And it's designed to make the work site where we spend the majority of our day meaningful and engaging. And so we want to work together with our employees and our managers to really create programs that are fun and give education and offer opportunities for people to connect either virtually or in person. So for me, most recently, I was working at American University for the last 10 years, and I was working with faculty and staff and also teaching students. And for the programming that we talk about every day, it's focused on physical, emotional, spiritual well-being, all those kinds of things that are important to get people to work, get them to focus on work and to get what they need to get done during the day. And we know through our programming that there are a lot of barriers. And so it's important to talk about those, have programs that are in place to address them. And as Stephanie mentioned, it's really important to ask employees what they need. And it's also important to work with your benefits teams, your wellness teams, and managers to find out also what they need and put together programs that really offer opportunities for the employee as well as their families. And so I think that supportive, engaging piece can't be overstated. So if we go to the next slide, what I've found over the years that works for best practices is to always engage leadership. And that's from the top levels of leadership to the managers in each of the departments. And it's important to ask them what they need. And by doing interest surveys that are for the employee as well as managers and leadership are really important, asking what they need and doing it not just once, but multiple times over the years to make sure that we're still targeting what's important. And if you're in a position like me, where I was the wellness person, so I had a dedicated position to do worksite wellness and also work life kind of balance integration, which was great. But many of the different groups that I've been working with, there's not a dedicated person. Usually it's a human resource person, someone in benefits who's got that as second, third, or fourth thing on their list. And so as you're talking to employees, asking them what they need and what they want in informal situations, as well as other programming that you're involved in. And if you have time and energy and have the ability to do it, focus groups are a really important thing to do because you're getting a cross section of people across the company to join. And it's basically asking them for feedback and listening. I think active listening is a really great skill to have, and making sure that people feel that they are heard. And if they're offering suggestions or they're offering feedback, to incorporate that. For many programs that we work with, we have more than one health benefit. So depending on if you have 1, 2, or 3 different health plans, you ask for their claims data and looking at what the top issues are. And I think very clearly through the presentation, you've heard that arthritis is a top contender. And it's definitely one of those things that you will see in musculoskeletal, you'll see it in joint, you'll see it in a lot of information around pharmacy, what medications people are taking. And so you want to get that information so that you can pull together a program that's going to meet the needs of the employees. And I always want to make sure that people think about the vision as well as their dental, because that information is very important as well, because you can see through some of the side effects and some of the symptoms that vision is impacted, and dry eye and those kinds of things with arthritis and things like that. So you really want to look at the whole person and not just the physical or just the claims data, but you want to find out what people are interested in and then focus on what they need. And I can't stress this enough, and this is one of the really important pieces of working with the Arthritis Foundation, is looking at your budget and how do you stretch your budget to encompass all the things that your employees need. And with Arthritis at Work, it is a free resource and it's all curated for you. So you don't have to take the time, energy, and effort to pull that information. It's the best information that's out there and it's the most current. And so if you don't have a budget or you have a budget that's shrinking, using these kinds of resources are really integral into offering the best program available. And, internal resources, especially if you are in a situation where you have a lot of expertise internally, is using those informal leaders and leaders that are there and resources to extend the information that you are offering. So for example, we have an internal newsletter that we use for our benefits team and our wellness team. And so we always put information every month in there about arthritis and some of the arthritis resources that are available. We also have a resource that goes out to all the employees once a week, and they will pull information from our newsletter to supplement. So it's not just going to the people who are interested in the benefits or the wellness, but it's going out to all the employees. So I think that's important from an internal standpoint. And then the external piece is making sure that you are connected to some of the resources that are in the community that don't cost anything. So for example, regional hospital systems, other educational resources like universities and educational programs that are out there, as well as the nonprofits like the Arthritis Foundation. It really helps round out all the best practices and resources that are available to you. I don't know if this is something that you're currently doing or if it's something that you've done in the past or something that you're thinking about, but always focusing on a wellness council, which is touching people across the system. And so it's asking for people who are interested and willing and excited about sharing their expertise, sharing their feedback. And usually this is a kind of a group that meets once a month. And the focus is to share information and as well as gather information. And the idea is that they are your spokesperson. And they're willing to do this. It's usually not paid, depending on the employer. Sometimes you get some bennies for doing that, like T-shirts and kind of tchotchkes and maybe kind of logoed, T-shirts and things like that. But basically, the idea is that they are the people who are going to really make sure that the programs that we're developing are touching the employees and then reaching the managers. What we typically do is we get feedback from the Wellness Council about different groups and departments that may be interested in learning more and doing some deep dives into the programs. And this is where I think it's really important for you as a benefits person, a wellness person, somebody who is interested in sharing this information, to do roadshows. And it can be virtual roadshows or it can be in-person roadshows, but that's where you can get that information to employees directly and get that feedback. So, we don't want to be in an ivory tower. We want to make sure that we are talking to people on a daily basis and getting out there. And so it's important to develop wellness councils, they can be from 8 to 12 people. Usually that's an important piece. And whoever the person is who is running those is to assign tasks. And so that's having someone take notes, someone who might schedule rooms for events, develop subcommittees. And also, if there is health fairs, I think from the pandemic, we're coming back to some more in-person health fairs to connect with the Arthritis Foundation, other nonprofits, other groups that are in the area to come and share their expertise. So those kinds of things I think are really important and make a healthy kind of connected, well-focused, well-being focused work site. And so I won't go into details, but the important piece of this is when you're focusing on arthritis at work, if you have programs in place, like we did at American University, for example, we have a parent support group. So this kind of information comes up about parents and their parents, as well as their children who may be impacted by arthritis. It's also important. We had a menopause support group. And so many people participated in the perimenopause and menopause support group. And many times the issues had to do with joint pain. It had to do with inflammation, had to do with all these things and making sure that we have expertise and doctors and people who are coming to share that information to say, this could be not perimenopause or menopause, but it might be related to arthritis, and getting the right diagnosis, seeing a professional, going to a primary care physician, sharing some of that information early and often to make sure that they are seeking the right treatment is really important. I think Asia was sharing, that there's a lot of comorbidities and you find that there's some depression, anxiety, and isolation. And so by joining support groups at work or through the Arthritis at Work Foundation's support groups and things like that, you are getting people to talk about what's going on and to really be able to help them target where they need to follow up with their physicians or other experts. And we know that the programming that we have at work is addressing the physical, the emotional, we talked about obesity and kind of musculoskeletal, healthy eating, all those kinds of things that are important through the Arthritis Foundation, but also to have a healthy employee. And so if you have those kinds of groups that are in place, you are connecting with people and then hearing some of that feedback and help guide people to the resources that they need. So I think it's really important to have these kind of programs in place and ask for resources, use the free resources that are available, and also to make sure that you are recognizing the people who are volunteering in some of these programs at work to support the institution. So I wanted to just take 1 minute before we wrap up my section to make sure that we're focused on some of the Surgeon General's framework for workplace mental health and well-being. And I think that this framework has come out over the last 5 years, but I think it's really important when we talk about equity and inclusion to look at the center of this kind of matrix. And in it, it's really centered on worker voice and equity. And I think from a well-being place that this is really important, that the employee is the center of an employer, and it's focused on employee wellness and well-being, and mental health is a definite big piece of that. And as you're looking at some of these sections, you're really looking at what matters to people at work. And that's that they feel they have dignity and that they have meaning and their work is important, that there's opportunities for growth, for learning and recognizing accomplishments. And really important, especially from the pandemic on, is making sure that the workplace is safe and secure and you're protecting employees from harm. And then that social connection that we know is so important. And there actually is a huge piece of the work that the Surgeon General is doing around loneliness, but making sure that there's social support and people feel belonging. And that's in a hybrid work environment, a remote work environment, or an in-person work environment. I think that's become very, very important over the last few years. And then, whether there's such a thing as workplace balance anymore, it's workplace harmony, and really how that flexibility and how as a worker and a person and a whole person in an employer, can work the best, and making sure that that's an important piece of that. So I just wanted to highlight that as kind of the framework going forward for workplace wellness. And so I will turn that over back to Stephanie. If anyone has any questions for us, we are here for the remainder of the presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Open up the chat and see what I can see, making sure I'm opening the right chat. Please drop your questions if you have any into the chat. We'll be happy to answer any of those. Karen, I see that you've raised your hand. I don't know that I have the ability to give you the power to unmute, but if you could please put your question in the chat. We would love to answer it. I'm sure I'm looking. Oh, look, there is a question and I just didn't look at it. I wasn't looking at the right thing. So Abby, it says, will this PowerPoint be sent out and shared? Yes, absolutely. We'll share the PowerPoint presentation as well as a recording. I think I said earlier that it would be sent today. I won't actually have the recording available until tomorrow because our wonderful team on the marketing side does look through it and make any edits as needed. We have, knock on wood, not had any technical difficulties today, but they are so great about cleaning those up for us when they do happen. So absolutely, that it will be shared. I'm sorry, I keep saying to put the questions in the chat. I actually mean the question and answer function. They are two different buttons on Zoom. They're not in Teams, which is what we typically use. But we use Zoom for our webinar platform because it tends to be a little more friendly about the technical difficulties. So in the Q&A function, that is where any questions would come up. And while we wait for some questions to come through, I'll say probably the number one question I get about arthritis at work is there any data collection? Privacy and security, of course, are important, especially when you're talking about your health in the workplace and your potential medical diagnosis. And so people get a little wary to talk about their diagnosis, which of course they're not required to. We do not require any kind of login or password with arthritis at work. And while we can see some data about how many people are visiting the site and what they're most interested in, we don't have any personal data about any user of arthritis at work unless they complete an opt-in activity. And an opt-in activity would be if they register for a webinar from the Great Work in Asia's team, then they will have to provide their name and their email address. They're not required, of course, to put in their work email address. They can do that on their personal, but their information will be stored very securely if they do sign up for one of those opt-in activities. I'm not seeing a ton of questions come through. I hope that I didn't jinx myself about the whole. Oh, there we go. Karen's question is, I wanted to know if you've developed any sort of partnerships with NCHPAD. We use a lot of acronyms here at the Arthritis Foundation, but I do not recognize that one. So I'm not sure. Oh, Andy, I'll let you take that.
So it looks like your son's going to be going to American University in the fall. So that's really exciting. My son actually graduated from American University as well. And his degrees were in neuroscience and data science. And he's 2 years out and has been working. And he's actually starting his master's program in the fall down in North Carolina. So it's really exciting. It's a very special place for students. I think being in Washington, D.C. is an amazing place. And I know that the students get the support and all of the resources that are needed to come from home to being away from home for the first time. So I'm excited for you, and you will love the campus. It's an arboretum, so can't be as excited as you can imagine you are, and dealing with kind of that piece. But just know he's in a great place.
That's great to hear. It stands for the National Center of Health, Physical Activity, and Disability. I am just one of many Arthritis Foundation employees. I personally do not have any connection to the NCHPAD, but that does not mean that someone in our organization, whether they be in the science or the patient education department, whether they have had relationships or have any kind of partnership with the NCHPAD, but I am not aware. Arthritis at Work has not, but I will certainly be looking into it after this call. All right, everyone, I don't want to hold everyone up. If there are no other questions or no clarification needed, of course, you're welcome to reach out to any one of us if questions come up later when you're thinking about this, or you have any other questions or suggestions for us at a later time. Our contact information is on the screen. And then, of course, I will be sharing the presentation and the commitment form. And so we hope to see many of you and hear from many of you soon about Arthritis at Work. Thanks, everybody.